A lot of what was going on in 1970 was basically you, meaning the establishment, are not listening to us. We're mad as hell and we're going to throw bricks. There had been protests going on at Ohio University up to that point, mostly peaceful, but it became increasingly difficult almost by the day to keep them peaceful. And so over a period of 11 days, more and more protests. Eventually in the last nights here, major protests where you might, I think on the last night we had something like 1,300 students assembled on the college green, and of that group about 800 moved closer to the entrance to the college green, Court and Union. Then police understandably assembled across the Court and Union to keep the students from going into the town where they were bent on doing a lot of destruction. And battles ensued, and I mean real battles, like 90 minutes of sustained firing of tear gas at students, students picking up the canisters, throwing them back. You know, I think it's important when you look at all this protest period to think of it almost as an era. It wasn't just Vietnam. It started, of course, with civil rights. It started with protests over women's rights before that. But in the backdrop through all of this, as we got into the late 60s and certainly in 1970 when it came to a head and the school closed, it was, the backdrop was really about Vietnam. There was so much that was surrounding Vietnam, and many other things contributed into that. In 1966, it was still a pretty staid campus. There had been some protests for civil rights, and we were just starting to see the first protests, peaceful protests over women's rights. So as you fast forward, you have the Vietnam War escalating, a deepening American involvement. But on the fringes of that, and concern about the Vietnam War were, I think, many, many other things contributing, including rising student fees. I think there were always town-gown tensions here in town. Keep in mind also that during that period we had the military draft, so if you were an able-bodied male student, the only reason you weren't drafted into the military was you had a student deferment. If you had a protest going on right now on Campus Green, what is different now than in 1970 is that that would be live streamed by someone, and there's more accountability, more reality of what's going on. So you know, we would see people being tear gassed. We would see students doing stupid things. There would just be more of it. You know, the Post has been better perhaps than we were in providing outlets for multiple perspectives on an issue. Reader blogs, reader comments, things like that. You know, that may be overly harsh of our era, but you know, we were focused on just a print product that came out once a year or once a day. And we didn't have these other channels available to us to allow voices to get in the paper. I think the net effect of that, and the beauty of the digital age, is that it amplifies the opportunity to give voice to people that normally would not have a voice. And that's something that's really important that we have to do in media. We have to, an example would be if we had those protests today, I would hope we would be smart enough to be going out into the community and saying, what are the pressures that are being felt by the people who can be capable of having terrible policies or making horrendous mistakes, as I think most people would agree that Vietnam was, and that there was that young people particularly found their voice by protesting. Vietnam, women's rights particularly, civil rights before that, which really started it. So if you put them all together, I think you saw that there was a recognition that we can move society through protest, and as long as it's peaceful, I think that's a very good thing.
All right. Thank you very much.
Yep.